close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah, no, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go. Finding life along the way, melodies we haven't played. No, I don't want no rest. Echoing around these walls, fighting to create a song. I don't wanna miss a beat. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go. And we'll grow in number, fueled by them to see the horizon, turn us to thousands. And we'll grow in number, fueled.
Good morning, evening, or afternoon, everybody on the internet. I am DB Halbert, author of Black Series, available on Amazon, and I am here to continue my journey once again to learn and process the information of the Pathfinder 2e game as I make the transition from 17 years of Dungeons and Dragons to much of which was in 3.5, a short stint into 4th edition, and I have been playing 5th edition since its release. Now I'm switching to Pathfinder 2e, which kind of feels a little bit like switching back to the 3.5 that I grew up in playing, and yeah, I'm just going to be continuing that journey today. Right now, I'm going through my learning process, which is to build characters, build an adventure, put those characters through that adventure, and learn the rules basically by playing with myself, for lack of a better term. Which, I mean, that is really lacking a better term. I really shouldn't have said it that way. But no, no worries. My goal is to learn the rules well enough that I am comfortable taking complete newbies, which my group, when we switch over to this, will essentially be complete newbies. I've already let them know that we're switching over to 2E, so they might be doing some reading of their own into it, but taking complete newbies and being comfortable guiding them into the system. So we're gonna get started here. Just as a apology, yesterday the video cut out at a certain point. I had to go do some other things for the rest of the day, couldn't get back to it. I did end up finishing Helen, and yes, she is a happy little indulgent halfling cleric of the I'm going just because I haven't gotten a chance to go ahead and learn the deities system in Pathfinder yet. I am using just their pantheon for now, and I chose the god of alcohol and drink, uh, when reading their description, I just laughed too much to not pick them, and it's a god that ascended to godhood because of a bet. He was drunk one night, someone bet him, no, a drunken dare. Someone dared him to become a god, and he did it. So, my boy has has something within him more. So Helen is following this deity who gets mad at you if you waste alcohol or are angry while drunk. So, or own a slave. That one feels a little off, but I mean, they are a god of freedom. Freedom is one of their domains, so that makes a little bit more sense when you know that. Alright, so today we won't be using Word or any PDF. Instead, we will be using Scrivener. This is where I do my note taking, my writing. I only got it this last Christmas, but I'm using it for a lot of things these days, and I love the organizational features to it. It's not quite as strong as OneNote could be. I know that I could use OneNote for my DM guides, but I kind of like using one program to its maximum and knowing that program rather than using 4 or 5 different programs. And I have Scrivener, so might as well use it. As you can see, I've already started a little bit today on the things I know I need for an adventure. Generally, I find that the first thing you gotta think about is, what do you want the objective for the party to be? You might come up with this for a first adventure, or you might ascertain this from the desires of the players as a campaign goes on, and that's a key thing. An adventure is, so you have 3 separate sizes of events within our role-playing game. You have encounters, which are range from anything between combat and just a conversation, even a stray dog coming up to the party so that one of the players can just pet a dog, because they, as the DM, you know that they kind of need that cathartic release at that time. That is DM. That's an encounter, regardless of if it gives experience, regardless of if it is hazardous in any way to the party. An encounter is when the player characters interact with the world around them. They are encountering something about the world. Now, an adventure is a bunch of encounters put together to accomplish one objective. Usually one objective. That objective might be a complex objective. It might require 3 different parts be completed, and all of those parts not be in any way, shape, or form alike to each other, but that's an adventure. And then you have campaigns, which are a bunch of adventures put together. So campaign ends when the last objective is achieved, and sometimes that's not a thing. Either that last objective, though, might just be the characters deciding, we're done with adventuring, we're gonna retire. And character retirement is a thing. It tells you that either the player is done with that character, or they feel that character's story has gotten to a point where the character is done with adventuring. Normally isn't something taken lightly. Normally it is a campaign ender, because there's other things going on at that point that need to be addressed. If one character is retiring, you then have to ask, why are the others not? And we're not dealing with that right now. All of our PCs are called what are called DM PCs or GM PCs for this game, because they don't use the Dungeon Master moniker. They use Game Master in Pathfinder, which is fair. And as a note, I do have all of my physical books now. I now have the 2nd edition Game Master's Guide, 2nd edition Core Rulebook, and 2nd edition Bestiary. Though, when on stream or working at my computer, I do tend to find it easier to be able to, if I know a page number or know a section, be able to type that in and use the PDF. So I will still be utilizing my PDFs, but I do have my physical copies now at hand, just as a cathartic thing, knowing that those are there for me. Okay, so we have objectives, threats, potential allies, locations, complications. So right now all of these are flashcards, but it is possible I might make them into folders. Actually, I should make all of these into folders. Give me a second. 3, 4, 5. The objective. Complications. Threats. This one, wrong one. Oh, this. Locations. Potential allies. Now what we do, the beauty of this is the nature of the flashcard appearance. Now we want to drop some quick notes of what we want each of these to contain. So the objective, I've decided that the main threat I want them dealing with this adventure is I want them to have to, I have this idea that there is something causing the dead to rise near a town that they are delivering something to. So, undead. So the objective will be to discover and deal with. That's open-ended. Deal with can mean many things. The source of undead in the area. Reason they're in the area. Say hook. So this is going to be a very simple hook. It's a level 1 adventure. So generally there are two ways of doing it. There's the very natural coming together, which is extremely hard to do, or you can do a very unnatural way, which is starting everyone on the job anyways. Now, you can use this with a very natural way of coming together, where they form up a group and then accept the contract. But the group accepted. And you could play this in many ways. You can make one of the characters into the merchant himself that's doing the delivery, and he hired the others as bodyguards. You could make the merchant an NPC that's completely useless in combat. You don't want to sway combat in the favor of the players with an NPC that is the same level as them, even though they're only level 1. Or you could have something as simple as this merchant put out flyers a couple days ago saying that he needs some bodyguards for an adventure, for a delivery, and he's paying, sir. And you can set the reward for the delivery out at the very beginning. And all 4 of them show up. There's an argument amongst them, each demanding they be the one to get the contract. They were there first. They actually brought the pamphlet, the flyer, what have you, and the merchant guarantees each of them a reasonable. The merchant says this delivery is important enough. I haven't sent my supplies to them in a bit of time. You know what? I'll just guarantee all of you get the same pay. I was willing to negotiate if only a single person came, and my maximum limit was insert price of what was on the flyer times the number of players in the group. So, the group accepted contract to deliver supplies to primary location. Okay. Undead, natural hazards. And actually, I'm going to put known combats. That being that while we know the threats, we also before we start play, we want to have some combats that are going to happen. We know these fights are going to happen, so that we can have things ready for them. We can have monster stat blocks ready. We can have maps ready. We know this fight will happen. So, what is that object? What is that source? A magic orb from Forgotten Catacombs. So, this is the primary objective will be locating this orb, and this is the MacGuffin I have in mind. It's this purple black crystal orb. It's this purple crystal that has almost like this black smoke continuously swirling within it while it is sitting still. And I do have a way, so you can see at the top I've set this as Eternal Eclipse Campaign. So at some point, this orb is going to shatter. And when that happens, thunder will rip across the sky and the sun will be blotted out. Because I want to make it look like the MacGuffin is for the group to take this orb to someone who knows. Because, in my experience, if you set up something like that, the group is going to do the other thing, and that's destroy whatever you want them to take to that important knowing person. So if I have them destroy this orb, knowing what happens when the orb is destroyed, and that's the true campaign starter, then we're good. And I can have, I actually have the intention of having, if they don't destroy the orb at the end of their first adventure, because I'm going to use this campaign for my group too. So this is helping me do some prep as well for that. And running through this experiment will help me fine tune it. I will have, my plan is if they don't destroy the orb immediately, which there's a likelihood that they're going to destroy it just because they're going to think that it's the, well, it is the thing that's causing the undead to come back to rise, and there's going to be a full fight scene around it, and we'll get to that. It's entirely possible that they realize after slaying the BBEG, Big Bad Evil Guy, undead thrall of this thing, during the fight, it just stops summoning more undead. And they might figure that out and not attack it, not destroy it. At which point, it could be a while before it's destroyed. Meaning, I need to be ready in the case that they don't destroy it. That I will need to make non-campaign adventures for them to go on before it is destroyed and the actual campaign begins. So we have our objective: discover and deal with the source of undead in the area. Source, magic orb from Forgotten Tomb. Complications. Destroying orb. Begins the eternal eclipse. Player deaths. Die. Become zombies. And this is important to make a note of. It means that if they have a NPC that they're dealing with, if they don't watch over that NPC but have that NPC doing things out at night, there needs to be some role, something to allow me to know, well, that NPC that they convinced to help them, if they don't check in on them, that NPC could die during that night and become a zombie, and they might have to fight them later. Because it's one thing to fight zombies that you don't recognize the face of them. Who are you? You're a stranger? Oh, you're a zombie? You're a stranger zombie? cool. If that stranger is little Sally Lou, the little girl who ran up to the party as they entered the town while chasing after the ball she was playing with. Well, suddenly, that terrifying little zombie looks an awful lot like that little girl that was running up to them chasing after her ball when they entered the town. Okay. So we're dealing with undead, natural hazards. We also have hazards of the catacomb, which could be traps or other creatures that find that environment fulfilling. There could be a mimic. There could be carrying crawler. The introduction of threat encounter. I'll say that's first contact. No. Road into town. The town of Fulham. That's the name of the town I'm going with. The old church. Forgotten Catacomb. Those are going to be our 4 primary locations. Now we'll expand upon certain bits, like the town of Fulham. We're going to want to know the different buildings that are in the town. The old church, we're going to want to know its location in relevance to the town, and of course the Forgotten Catacomb is beneath the old church. And actually they probably won't enter the Forgotten Catacomb, because my thought is as soon as the orb was brought out of the catacomb, the poor sap who had found the catacomb and was stealing treasure from it, who was holding the orb, their life force was drained to activate this ancient magic that caused the undead to begin rising. So potential allies, we're going to be looking at the townspeople of Fallen. Now, who are they? They're mostly farmers. So it's a they're sustaining themselves off of the land. So it's not really a situation where they're great exporters. But that being said, I can design 3 that are than more than the normal commoner. This being towards an idea that these are people who may have done some adventuring in their lives and have retired to this small town, deciding, you know what? Yeah, I'm not putting my life on the line for that life, that type of life. I'm gonna go find a small town somewhere and settle down. Uh, the companion or companions, depending on the situation, of the Orb's Thief. So these people who found the catacombs and might be just trying to bide time before they can think of a way of getting out of the town unnoticed. If they just leave the town in the middle of the day, people are going to think or biding time so that them leaving in the middle of the day won't be a problem, because these undead are only coming out at night. It's not going to be a situation where these dead are walking around during the day. Because I also like that theme. I like the idea of because characters want to fight during the day. It has the least penalties on them. So and I need to have ready the ability to decide if a night is heavily cloud covered, meaning it's darker outside, or if the moon's full and bright. Okay, so all right. So we know that we can come into. Can we make a template? So I know and adding a template, a new from template. How do we turn this into a template? Give me a moment, I gotta look this up. How to make a template. select project, project settings, syntax, special folders, item in the dialog. If you find out that you don't have a text folder, make a new folder at the root level and name it whatever you like. But most projects call it template sheets. So project settings. Select selection as template folder. There we go. So this is where I'm going to put information templates. This actually I don't want in research. It's its own thing. Oh, if I close research, I still have help for creating sessions. But also if I close this, it's always right there. Okay, cool. So this template is encounter template. We're going into that. Thank you, Internet. You didn't actually help me, but you got me looking in the right place. So I'm gonna have this, I'm gonna go into that. I'm gonna insert tables based on the information in the core rulebook. Okay. Keep going. Almost there. Okay, so add table. Apparently I'm not allowed to change any of this, so let's try that again. Insert table. There we go. Add column. And it will stretch the entire screen regardless. Unfortunate. threat, XP, budget. Character adjustment. So we won't need this column anyways, as that is for parties greater than or less than 4. Okay. Add. So I need a total of 5. Okay. Prewritten. Trivial, low, moderate, severe, extreme. So anything that is not, that is below trivial actually doesn't give experience. When it comes to, well, no, it gives experience, but essentially it doesn't. Because remember, you need 1,000 experience per level, and the amount of experience that each creature gives you isn't static. So a goblin doesn't always give you X amount of experience. Once a goblin is lower than, is 5 levels lower than your party, you're not getting experience for it, bud. Okay. So trivial. And this is the XP budget is also what you give at the end of the encounter. So extreme encounters are only approaching 1/5 of the experience necessary to level up. And they're meant to be the things that are actually threatening your party's life. Though it's never, like, they don't have a deadly on here. One that you, probably the cap, dude. Stop, no. Don't do more than this. Though, the way each of these are set up is that's 60 to 41, 80 to 50, to 61, 120 to 81, 160, 121. So you can assume anything past what the extreme one is beyond the scope of an encounter. What you should be looking for from an encounter, I mean. I had that last little bit because, I mean, okay, because it is actually their suggested role, but for some reason the title of this is that it's creature XP and role. Suggested role. Doesn't matter. And I need a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I've got 2, so 8 more. So we have creature level. Can I... XP. So this is one of the things I actually find really intriguing from Pathfinder to from D&D to Pathfinder. D&D, everything has a set experience, so that's why you actually see those the experience table being along the lines of an exponential curve. Whereas in Pathfinder, it's always 1,000 experience per level. But not everything gives the same experience points at any given time. So this is actually a much sleeker way of also giving some triviality to some creatures at higher levels. Throw 100 goblins at your party. They actually don't apply any experience for the party members to kill. It's not worth it. It gives reason for why that wizard in the tower doesn't want to do a task that's way below him, because it literally is too far below him for him to care about doing it himself. It's actually better for him to send someone else who could actually get something out of the experience. Okay. Party level. Okay, and the experience, it's 40 and then it's 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 60. So something that's 4 levels above the party is supposed to be, it in and of itself, challenging enough that it is an extreme threat to the party. I'm interested in seeing how that plays out. Any lackey at level. there's no such thing as a minus 3 character creature level. So at level 1, there is no such thing as a low threat lackey. You can see how they have it to where each of these things are overlapping a little bit to give that range. So while it says any standard creature, at this point this is any highly threatening standard creature. If you're throwing a bunch of standard creatures that are party level, you're making it less interesting of a fight. Because you could, and they mentioned this, the number of attacks, number of actions on both sides is what matters a little bit more than a single creature's threat level. So when you have more characters, it is actually better to make that threat back with, instead of making the creature stronger, make the number of creatures larger. You also have to keep in mind that where it says moderate or severe threat boss, that's a single moderate boss or a severe threat boss that has minions. So we have that to know. So in here, encounter title. Now I'm going to, I put a lot of things in a strange order for some. But I do them in this order for a very specific reason. So I want to have what I need to know at the top if this encounter just spur of the moment. And the information that more elaborates why I built the encounter and what purpose I have for it later on. So, encounter difficulty, encounter threats. Encounter treasure. Encounter purpose. So, I have difficulty, threats, treasure. So difficulty will help me determine how many of the help me build the actual encounter. And the threats are not just the enemies, but there could be something about the environment. There could be something. There could be traps, hazards that have to be watched out for. So it's a matter of figuring out all of this information. Is how I build encounters. Even stray dog encounter. Okay, encounter difficulty. Trivial. Encounter threats. The dog might bite you. Is it a diseased dog? If you're not being cool, if you're not being nice to this dog, what's gonna happen? Encounter treasure. There's not. It's completely there to say encounter treasure. None. And encounter purpose. Cathartic release of petting a dog. So, encounter title. Introducing the threat. Let's do this real quick. So the encounter difficulty. This is going to be the first encounter. So let's put it down here. After this, actually, I need to not be doing this in the template. So the template is set up. Alright, now I need to come up here. Threats. Not. No. I will type it eventually. So the point of known encounters in a known encounters section is encounters I know will happen, regardless of regardless of player choice. I know these encounters are the encounters that advance the story. Any other encounter that I have to come up with on the fly or I prepare outside of these are to enrich the world and the individual stories, but this is what these are the encounters that advance the adventure. So, onward and upward we go. Let me just go ahead and get myself another drink real quick. I need to go get another bottle of Coke. 1 second.
We used to hide under the covers, serenade each other with careless melodies. Something very deep inside us, the major and the minor were like piano keys. You played for me. You played for me. Oh, you played for me. I swear, even in my sleep, I hear it like the memory of everything we used to be. You played for me. You are my symphony. By your side, we are unity. You are my energy, my guiding light. We are unity. Couldn't stop the world from turning. It was like a whirlwind, scattered us like leaves. But I'm stuck inside a feeling that something never leaves. We were like a symphony. Played for me.
Okay. So as you can see, this is the general format I'm going to be using for expanding my adventure. So if I go into introducing a threat, I can copy, paste that there. Encounter difficulty. Going off of this, I kind of want to be a severe threat. This is going to be, let me explain further. The encounter purpose. So, finds himself soon. Perform. Did I say Fulham or Fulham? Let's make it Fulham. This is the first encounter of any threat the party finds themselves since leaving Fulham. They are at full power, and needs to be challenging. You want the first one to be of a campaign to be challenging to put into your players the threat of adventuring. If you don't threaten, they'll start running roughshod over you, not taking any of your threats seriously, even if you don't intend for your threats to be serious. You want them to be worried about their character's survival. This is the introduction to threat. Has claimed the town of Fulham. Oh wow, I just looked at the bestiary open on my screen. My eye locked onto Brain Collector. Give me a moment. I'm investigating this. Page 46. Oh wow, Pathfinder has built into it lore about spell jamming, because whether driven by their own screams or directives from sinister overlords, brave brain collectors arrive in living starships to harvest the brains of intelligent creatures. Starships! Whew! Okay. Sorry. I just thought it would be great to have several of those under the control of Illithid. These creatures that don't survive off of consuming the brains, but go about collecting them, which is the Illithid food. Okay. This is the introduction to the threat that has claimed the town of Fulham. In protected areas. So this encounter is going to be fairly simple. But the simplicity is what makes a zombie apocalypse scary. There's just a ton of them. So with encounter threats, zombies. Make that important. How cool would it be if the first encounter of the adventure, a thick fog has set in over the night, the fire barely illuminating the white around the group. Trees stick up, and while the person on watch can see out to a distance, it's only as they see silhouettes swaying in their direction that they realize the futility of the act of keeping watch in such a dense fog. Roll initiative. So, treasure. None. If necessary, the clothing of the zombies becomes treasure. It isn't worth much. Okay, so we want this encounter difficulty to be severe. That's 120. XP threshold. But do we want any extra threats? Depending on the threats we want, we can build the environment that this encounter takes place on, the road that they're traveling. We can make falling rocks a thing. We could have zombies up on a cliff, and in the process of stepping towards the living souls beneath, not only do the zombies fall from the cliff, being this extra zombie that never actually takes part in the encounter because the zombie itself is destroyed on impact, but sending the rocks, this extra hazard, immediately triggered upon the party. Now, we know that it is entirely possible that the party might just stop their long rest and just push it until morning. That's fine. But we want to have everything ready for if they choose to stand and fight, because running is always an option. Always be prepared for your party to just run and leave whatever you created to, for lack of better term, for what we're dealing with, sit there and rot. So 340. 340 in the bestiary is where we will find our zombies. So the bestiary actually has, if you are trying to build an adventure and you don't know what the theme of your adventure will be, my theme, I really wanted to go with the undead thing. I wanted the cleric. I know my party is going to have a cleric. He really likes the cleric concept. So regardless of the game we're playing, he tries to find the thing that's most close to cleric. So I know that is a thing. He's also the newest of our players in any game we've played. So I kind of want to put that very clerical thing in front of him of fighting undead. So that's going to be an option for him. That's one of the reasons I had this idea. Plus I also had the idea of this orb that is unearthed and suddenly begins wreaking havoc on the town that it was unearthed from within. And I kind of want to build on that. And we just got out of a campaign that was very heavily themed towards fiends and devils and demons, and also devils and demons tend to it. You can't really get the flavor of them at low levels. You can get imps a little bit, but that's more of an annoyance. If you really want the demons and devils flavor, you have to be up at higher levels, whereas zombies are amazing, especially at low levels. So in the bestiary, at page 350 in the book, there is a chart for creatures by level. So if you don't have like a thought on a theme you're going for, you can actually hop back to that page and look at things that are appropriate for your group's level and figure out your threats first, and then figure out how those threats are all tied together. I knew a lot of this before I started this stream, so a lot of the information going forward. But I do want to look into the core rulebook, which has some hazards as options. So I am going to detecting a hazard, triggering a hazard, disabling a hazard. Hazard XP is different from monster XP, so let me go to this section. Creature XP, so let me hazard XP. Here's hoping it lets me copy. Yes, okay. Hazard level, XP. So you can really throw a bunch of extra hazards at your party to really enhance the feel without it being so much of a contribution. Oh, that's why. Simple hazard, that's what these are. Complex. So the complex ones are going to be the ones that reset, use, and that falls in line with monsters. Actually, not exactly. But my plan, natural hazards are likely not be very complex. Stay away from cliff sides, that type of thing. There is no hazard minus of level -1, so we also know that the minimum is a party level -1. So the minimal experience granted from a hazard is 6 to the encounter. So, We have hidden pits, summoning runes, slamming doors, poisoned locks, quicksand, spear launcher. These are all a little bit more, even more complex than I'm thinking of. I guess it's not really a trap if the rocks are not being set off by the party. Is there a hunting trap? Guess I could use a hidden pit. But with piercing damage. No, I think I might just have one of the attacks of a creature in the encounter. Falling rocks? Okay, so we have... normally you try to go for the more threats you can put into an encounter, the more complicated they can be, the more complex the encounter becomes, the more fun it can be, unless of course you build an extremely complex encounter and your party somehow completely nullifies all of the complexity. That has happened to me before. I became very salty. I'm very sad that I became as salty as I did. I wouldn't want to have become as salty as I did. It was just more of pure emotion driving me into that. But yeah. So we do know that as there are creatures that are level 0, that are zombie shamblers that are creature level -1 will be if we put this here, zombie shamblers, those are on page 340 of the bestiary. And zombies only desire to consume living, unthinking, and ever-shambling harbingers of death. Zombies stop only when they're destroyed. So these are fights to the death. You're not going to have zombies retreating. Unless they're being controlled by someone. Which in this case, if the sun's beginning to rise, they begin to retreat. Now, zombie abilities. You can modify zombies with the following zombie abilities. Most zombies have one of these abilities. If you give a zombie more, you might want to increase its level and adjust its statistics. So, I think the first set of zombies, I'm not going to have them have any zombie abilities. And it will be later in the adventure that they're going to have more creature diversity to have the different abilities within them. There's digesting pustules, there's feast, there's plague ridden, there's rotting aura, and there's unkillable. All really cool, interesting things that can enhance the zombies in a very interesting way. But for now, we're going to be utilizing just as many zombies as we can throw at the party. Just make their night horrible. Each of these zombies have 20 hit points and have negative healing. So negative damage heals them. Healing damage, radiant, what would normally heal humans, damages them. They are immune to death effects, disease, mental, paralyzed, poison, and unconscious. They have a weakness to positive energy 5, so the first 5 points of positive energy are doubled, I believe. And 1 second.
I'm sorry, baby, gonna have to let you down.
Sorry about that. I had to step away for a moment. I got a phone call. Got a job interview tomorrow. Which helps. Also means me streaming might not be as big of a thing going forward. Not sure about how that will roll, how that will work out, but we'll see when that time comes. Alright, so for encounter building, we know our zombie shamblers, our creatures -1. The party level will be level 1. So -1, party level 1. That's party level -2 for each of these creatures. So each is going to contribute 20 experience points towards the encounter, and we're going for an encounter of severe. So we're going to have up to 6 that we can send at the party at a time. Now, we want to add some encounter diversity, threat diversity to this. We don't want it just to be the zombie shamblers. So, just going to make a note of that, up to 6. But I'm thinking, if we put fog in, this is going to make things harder to hit. I don't know the exact details, but it's along the lines of making things harder to hit with ranged attacks, distant threats, but it doesn't have a statistic value, I don't believe. So we're going to just no effect on difficulty. It just means things are, it removes a little bit of the free fire range that people have before attacking a zombie. Now, I do like the idea of falling rocks. Cart stopped in ravine. I misspelled ravine. Ravine. I clicked on the wrong one. There we go. So, cart stopped in ravine. Fall to death. Near cliff face. By tumbling stones. So these hazards, I don't see recommendation in damage each hazard should do for a level type of thing, but that's something I'll look into and figure out going forward with constructing this. And actually, it's been about 2 hours since I started this stream. I'm going to be calling it here. I'm going to work a little bit more off stream. I gotta go do some family talking to. I gotta mentally prep myself for my interview tomorrow. So, someone did stop by to watch. Thank you for watching, and I will stream tomorrow. The reason I'm streaming is just so I have something I can look back on. If I think something's going wrong with what I did to prepare, I can look back on it and see what happened, what was going on. So I now have this information. This is the first encounter that will be happening, and usually I find that more than 1 or 2 encounters in a session tends to not happen, at least in 5th edition, and encounters are even more streamlined there than they are in Pathfinder. For what I can see, there's more complexity to Pathfinder, which is going to innately slow things down a little bit. But I have a little bit more work to do to build out some more encounters, put some more information. I'll build out some more encounters in here, but actually I should add in here to my encounter temp. Where is my mouse? There it is. It's a little line right now. Encounter Counter location, not purpose. There we go. So now going forward, we'll have that line as well to remind us where this encounter is meant to take place. All right. Well, I'm going to turn off the stream now. Do some work going forward behind the scenes. Thanks for stopping by, or if you did stop by, if anyone stops by. See you later, Internet.